All right, welcome everyone. We are super excited to have you at our newest Sideline chat. I'm Haley Bala, P1440's Director of Marketing, and I'm so excited to have you join a topic that holds immense significance in this rapidly evolving landscape of sports: NIL agreements and the art of developing and optimizing your personal brand. NIL agreements refer to name, image, and likeness, which involve rights of athletes to profit from their personal brand through endorsements, sponsorships, appearances, social media campaigns, merchandising, and more. This has the ability to impact women in beach volleyball tremendously. And today we have the privilege of hosting distinguished experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the forefront of this conversation. With that being said, first we have Lesley Feldman, co-founder and counsel for Players Collxctive. Welcome, Lesley.
Hi, guys.
Lesley is a former D1 national champion for UCLA softball. She received her bachelor's degree in political science and her Juris Doctor degree from California Western School of Law. After practicing employment law at large firms, she branched out and started her own law firm in 2010. And in July of 2021, she started a sports agency representing female athletes called Players Collxctive, helping athletes navigate through the NIL space and their professional careers. Lesley is passionate about creating equal opportunities and representation at the table for female athletes, which we love. Welcome, Lesley.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Lisa Stokes, Vice President and Head of Athlete Relations for OneTeam Partner. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everyone.
Lisa has been in the sports and entertainment world for nearly 20 years in the area of athlete casting, talent booking, and athlete marketing, with 2 years in the nonprofit public relations and 13 years at ESPN, where she's won 4 Emmys, and over 2 years at OneTeam Partners. She has extensive experience within all areas of television, film, talent procurement, celebrity and athlete bookings, as well as influencer castings. Lisa currently serves as Vice President and Head of Athlete Relations for OneTeam Partners, an organization that works with professional athletes to enhance their name, image, and likeness across multiple verticals. She also hosts a podcast called Never Lose Your Cape, where she interviews people in sports and entertainment industry about perseverance and hope. In addition to her full-time job, Lisa also teaches sports media and sports business graduate classes at Georgetown University and Boston College. Superwoman. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. All right, let's jump in. So for those unaware, historically, NCAA rules have strictly prohibited college athletes from profiting off their NIL. In recent years, there has been a seismic shift in this landscape. In 2021, the NCAA and various state legislatures in the US, it's important to note not all states, but introduced new rules and laws allowing college athletes to profit from their NIL rights. This has important significance for sports like beach volleyball that have historically been underfunded and many universities consider to be an equivalency sport. So I'd love to hear from both of you. What excites you most about this shift and how it applies to women in sports? Lisa, I'll kick it off to you first.
Yeah, thank you. I have to make a joke that I prepped Lesley. I was going to make this joke that even though Lesley was a Division I athlete, I played Division III college basketball. And I can tell you, if I earned 25 cents off of every jersey that was bought of mine, my mom would have bought 500 of them. So I think what most excites me about the new NIL rule is that finally college athletes are benefiting from their own likeness. Now, when I was at ESPN for such a long time, but in that tenure, we had Tim Tebow, and he is such a great example of this. And I remember in the moment, and to be clear, I do not believe in pay for play. But I do very much believe in an athlete being paid for their own image and likeness. And I just remember at the time, which think of how long ago Tim Tebow played, even being like, gosh, every person in Florida and most of around the country has this guy's jersey. And he is on the cover of so many magazines, so many media guides, and he is not making one dime off of his own self. And it just blew my mind. And so when you think about all like the historic, outstanding female athletes that have had legendary college careers, I mean, when you look at like Ann Myers Drysdale and her career at UCLA, and Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Miller, they played at USC. For those of you that don't know Cheryl Miller, you should look her up, because when she was in high school, like most of you, she averaged 105 points a game. 105. So when you think about if that law had been in place for her, or if she was a college athlete now, just think of how extraordinarily she would do in the landscape, and she would just be such a fan favorite. So I think what I'm most excited about is that your self-worth, your hard work, your performance is now directly being tied back to you in some way. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with what Lisa's saying. And if you think about it in, certain sports, especially volleyball, I came from a softball background. The ability and the earning potential you have at the collegiate level is so huge now compared to the opportunities some of us have post-college at the pro level. I mean, our pro leagues, obviously pro beach volleyball is, growing and getting so big now, but for us at the softball level, it's not there yet. I'm still working on that, but it's not there yet at the pro level. So their earning potential at the college level with the new NIL rules is so much higher, and their ability to earn revenue at the college level because of NIL, because of brand sponsorships, because of endorsements, it's so big. And it's so exciting to see these college players getting opportunities. It's just really exciting. And it's something, I wish I came out of college with these opportunities. I came out of college going to law school, and these kids are coming out of college with, IRAs and investments and, savings. And it's just a whole different experience now.
For sure.
It's incredible. It's absolutely changing the landscape for women, and I'm just so excited about it. But at the same time, an industry like this doesn't just pop up overnight. and without its challenges. So I would love to hear a little bit about what some of the difficulties you're encountering, especially with women in sports right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from it. I do have a legal background. So one of the things I was most concerned about when they first put NIL into play, across the board, was just that people didn't know what they were getting into. Mm-hmm. So people were like, oh, this is so exciting. We can profit off our name, image, and likeness. But I was like, everybody slow down, because you have to know what it means, what you're agreeing to, and what you're signing, because brands, sponsors, companies are coming at you with offers, and it sounds great because you're getting offered money, but do you know what you're agreeing to? Do you know what the contract says? Do you know what you're signing away when you're agreeing to take this money? Because name, image, and likeness is just that. It's the rights to use your name, image, and likeness for a certain amount of money. Well, are you giving that rights forever? And if you are giving it forever, how much money did they give you for those rights forever? So you need to be careful on what you're agreeing to, and that a company is not taking advantage of you in that regards. And you need to either work with somebody that understands contracts so you know exactly what you're agreeing to, or you need to learn to read them. And what I try to do with the athletes that I work with is, one, I obviously have the legal background and I know how to read a contract, but I try to explain all of my contracts to my athletes, because I want them to understand what I'm having changed in the contract, because I want them to have the ability to read certain parts of a contract and know, oh no, that shouldn't be in there. So they understand from like a business perspective and how to be a businesswoman, what should and shouldn't be in a contract.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Lesley. I would say, unless you are LeBron James and you're doing a deal with Nike, the phrase in perpetuity should not appear in any of your contracts. Exactly. But I do not have a law degree. I have a sports business graduate degree. I do contracts for a living as well as Lesley. And so we will do, hundreds and hundreds of athletes contracts a year. And what Lesley says is 100% right. I think that the thing that I personally find so difficult about this is that when this was greenlit, it became the wild, wild west instantly. And while I would love to tell you that there are great people out there like Haley and Lesley and myself, there's also a crap ton of really bad people out there. And so I would say the most difficult part about this is the scammers. And that could be anything from people trying to get to you to advise you that really don't know what they're talking about. I mean, when you interview with someone, or what I would suggest if there are parents on the call or athletes, like, you should not be taking or signing a deal with anybody who you meet for the first time. I would say, if you're interested in finding a publicist or an agent or an advisor, meet with a handful of them, ask them key questions. Come to me or Lesley and we'll tell you what to ask for and what to look for. One of the main things is like their history in the business. How long have they been in the business? Who have they worked with? It's nice. Like, I was just advising a young woman who plays in the women's professional football league, not soccer, actual football. And she said, oh, I'm going to meet with this guy. He represents, I don't want to say the athlete's name, but it was a really big athlete. And I was like, that's great. That athlete has deals like they're knocking down her door. But what is he doing for influencers? What is he doing for the lower level athletes? Ask him about deals that he's done for someone else other than the super famous athletes. Because when you have a super famous athletes like Angel Reese, I'm sure you all know who Angel Reese is now, like, they're knocking down her door to get her deals. So her publicist is collecting, but she's not going out and scrounging and pulling at hairs and getting deals done. But again, like, the contracts are super important. The phrase term, which means like, hey, I'm committed to this brand for 3 months, I'm committed to this brand for 6 months, I'm committed to this brand for a year. Also, exclusivity and non-exclusivity is super huge, and I feel like that no one has ever taught athletes about that. Exclusivity means that you can only work with one brand in a certain category. So let's say you're a video gamer and EA comes to you and they want to do a deal with you. If you sign an exclusive deal with them, you cannot do any mention, posting. You can't be in the background of your friend's tweet or Twitch stream playing PlayStation that isn't an EA game. So I would say exclusivity is a huge red flag. Like, be super diligent about the exclusivity, non-exclusivity, because that is something else to be super aware of. And I will say, sorry, I'm going on long. The biggest thing too is trust. Like, you have to trust the person that you're working with. And if you're in over your head, or if you're a parent and you don't know, find someone that you trust. And how you find that person is you go to meetings like this, and you meet new people, and you ask for advice. The good thing about like Lesley and I is that, like, we were athletes ourselves. So like, we really want to see female athletes do really, really well. Like, I advise a lot of female athletes. I don't make any money off of it. I don't need to make any money off of it. Like, we're here to keep the industry very hot for female athletes. And I would say in the last 20 years, this is the most hot that female athletes have ever been in the sports marketing space. So you're all in excellent. Good job being born when you were born, because it's never been as hot as it is right now.
Never. And it is so inspiring that there are people out there like you, Lisa and Lesley, that are advocating for women in this space. I think it is so incredible. So if
I'll say one more last thing.
Yeah.
Like, Google the company, Google the brand. If the person's like lobbying to represent you or to work with you, like, they should appear in Sports Business Journal. They should appear in USA Today. There has to be some level of media presence that company has made so that you can legitify that it's a real thing.
Cool. I love that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, pay very close attention to contracts. Words like exclusivity and perpetuity are things you need to keep a very close eye out for. Work with people you trust and really develop those relationships before jumping into something. Mm-hmm. I also would be curious, Lisa, to hear from your perspective with your marketing background. You know, you mentioned there's lots of athletes that are in the spotlight and that are used to being in the spotlight. But for a lot of these athletes, this is a newer space for them. So what are some of the difficulties you're seeing athletes encounter in developing and cultivating their personal brands?
Yeah, I would say the number one advice, I do speak to younger athletes quite often, and the number one advice that I always give to people is authenticity. That is the most important thing that you could possibly do, not only throughout your career, but 100%, especially like when you're an up and coming into your college career and into your professional career. Meaning, like, if you wear Lululemon every single day and you absolutely love it, that is awesome. Then maybe don't take a deal with Reebok. Okay. If every single one of your Instagram posts has you in Lululemon gear, don't take the deal with Reebok just because they're offering you a deal. Because then again, once you get into the apparel space, apparel is 100% exclusivity. So I would say, and be off. If you don't know who your authentic self is, really work on that to figure it out. But be your authentic self in every facet. If you love dog adoption, if you're passionate about the Alzheimer's Association, if you love to play chess in your free time, like, these are all things that you should be proud of and you should be showcasing on your platforms so that brands and leagues and publicists and agents can get to know your authentic self, the way that you want the world to see you, in the same way that you see yourself. So if you love Chick-fil-A, don't be posting about Burger King, right? So just stay to what's truly authentic. Like Lesley said, like, it's super easy to see dollar signs and take the payout. But like, I don't know, I pride myself on healthy eating, and you couldn't pay me $1 million to post about McDonald's. You just couldn't, because once you do that one post, that's your brand. Right. So, and you guys unfortunately live in an era of like, everything is found now. Even if you go on and delete it, it's to me, it's like the cloud. It's there. I don't know how it works, but like, it's out there and you can't take it back. So my biggest thing is authenticity 100%, especially with brands.
And when she says stay authentic, it also means don't take every offer that comes your way. Because if your social media turns into a walking advertisement, you're going to lose engagement. You're going to lose people scrolling through your social media and just be like, oh, she's got another ad again. She's got another. And that's just not fun, because now that's not authentic to who you are. You literally just look like a walking advertisement. And if every day you're just posting another, brand deal, it's not true to yourself. So stay authentic to brands that you really want to work with, that it's not. And even when I talk to brands about my athletes and they're like, oh, we want 5 social media posts a month. I'm like, I'm not going to give you 5 social media posts a month because my athlete is going to lose engagement by posting 5 times a month about your company. Mm-hmm. So you might benefit from it, but my athlete's not, because people are going to look at her and be like, oh, she's just doing this because she's getting paid to do it. And we want to keep their social media authentic, that you actually enjoy going to their social media and seeing what they're up to and not thinking they're just doing this because they're getting paid by a brand. So you want to think of keeping it authentic in that regard.
I think you bring up such a good point. We've gotten a lot of questions around even the strategies and tactics of how you start to promote content. And I do think the piece of making it authentic to yourself, so integrating it into your daily posting or something that feels right to you. If it doesn't feel right to sit there and hold a can of something and just showcase yourself in that way, you shouldn't feel forced to do that. You can find other creative ways to work around that. What are some of the ways that you coach your clients on that? What level of engagement do you play in that? Or in other words, if these athletes that we're talking to now do engage with agents, what would that relationship look like?
Well, I think it starts I always call my athlete and I say, hey, this company wants to partner with you. What do you think? And some of them are honest and they're like, I wouldn't use that product. And some are like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then when they say that's kind of cool, the next thing is like, what's the ask? And every athlete says to me, like, what's the ask? So, and when they say what's the ask, is usually a company comes back and says, okay, they'll pay you this amount of money for 3 social media posts, 1 a month, but sometimes they'll say in feed, which is the static post that stays on your Instagram, and then an in story. So it might be 1 in feed and 1 in story. Well, a lot of athletes want it to be in story because it disappears in 24 hours versus just living. So that's where there's some negotiating going on. So maybe we say to a brand, okay, 1 month we'll give you 3 stories, and then 1 month we'll give you an in feed. So it's not so many ads living on their in feed, because a lot of my athletes like to keep their in feeds, their personal stuff, where it's more authentic to who they are, and keep more stuff in their stories. But that just depends on the brand. If you pay more money, you can get an in feed. If you don't pay as much money, you can get a story. So and then keeping it authentic to yourself, it just depends. If it's like she was talking about, an athletic brand, that's a lot easier in your daily life. You're waking up, you're going out, you're working out. It's easy to incorporate that in your daily life. We just had 2 athletes do a campaign with OOFOS, the recovery sandal. Which, are you wearing them? She's wearing.
I got them on right now. Love them. Love them.
Sponsor us, OOFOS.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that was interesting is they were both softball players, but we couldn't do it softball. We had to do it, out of softball. So we chatted on the phone and we were like, okay, we don't have time to do this walking off the softball field. We've got to do it somewhere else. So both of them were like, we'll do it in the gym. Like, they were literally on a road trip and they went to the hotel gym and they shot the content in the hotel gym like they just finished working out. So we kept it authentic to them being athletes and working out and recovering from working out, but still being an athlete. So we just kind of talked to how we keep it authentic to themselves. Like, it wasn't necessarily them coming off the softball field, but still them being athletes and recovering from being an athlete. So just kind of having conversations on how it stays true to who you are.
I love that. Now, a lot of our P1440 members are high school level. And so a lot of these athletes are starting to think about what that next step looks like, and how they can prepare for the college world and beyond. And so what are 1 to 2 key things you think they should be focusing on right now if they do want to develop and optimize their personal brand?
So I'm going to say this now, and it's going to be scary, but your social media has to be public. So you're going to have to get to the point where you're ready. And you should let your parents know, but your social media has to be public because public obviously means more followers and more engagement. So when that point is ready for you and your family for that to happen, you've got to open your social media to public, and you also have to change it to a business account. And there's a settings within your Instagram account to make it a business account. And I say that because what's going to happen with that is then you can look at your metrics through Instagram of your engagement when you do a post, and it shows how many people looked at it. And then you can look at the age range that looked at it and the followers that looked at it. And those are the things brands want to look at.
And
the other
whitelisting.
And yes,
Whitelisting.
and whitelisting. And the other thing I'm going to say is, this is when I say you want to think about what your brand is. And even if you're in high school, that's fine. And when I say what's your brand, it could be beach volleyball. It could be a day in a life of you being a beach volleyball player and what that entails from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And that's your niche. And that's what your social media is going to be surrounded by. It doesn't even have to be beach volleyball. It could be a day in a life of being a high school kid, you know what I mean? And what that looks like. It could be fashion, there's so many kids in today's day and age in fashion. It could be beauty, whatever your niche is, do it and run with it. Because when you start to get people engaged in like what you're really into, that's how you start to get a following. And we do this brand kind of ID thing with our athletes. And we say, like, when you think of Starbucks, like, what do you think of? You think of the cup and you think of the logo and you think of so think of yourself as a brand and like, what is your brand going to be? So when people think of who you are, what is it going to be? Is it going to be beauty? Is it going to be I'm an athlete? Is it going to be I'm into fitness? Is it going to be I'm into CrossFit? What is it going to be? And try to like build your social media around whatever that is. Because if you're just kind of all over the place, like posting things, then people are like there, but you're not going to really draw people in to like be more engaged in your social media.
And
Yeah, sure.
correct me if I'm wrong, there can be some interesting cross sections there. I was reading an article about how collegiate NCAA women's basketball players are just like leading the game on fashion and makeup and
Nails.
nails. And they are just they're crushing it. And so there is a fun intersection there of how do you show up for your sport, but also bring out your personality, which speaks to the theme of authenticity. But I'm curious if do you kind of talk through those cross sections when you're coaching your athletes?
I love that. I mean, there's a catcher who was just in the national championship of softball, and I don't know if you followed it at all, but she does her eye makeup. Her name's Michaela Edenfield. She does her eye makeup. It's insane. I'm obsessed. Like, it is this crazy eye makeup, and then she puts her catcher's mask over it, and all you see is this eye makeup that comes through. And she did it, and she does it on her social media every day before games. And she even did a little girl at the College World Series, like ESPN did it and showed her doing the little girl's makeup. But like, yeah, I mean, beach volleyball players, for some reason, you guys always have the most amazing, beautiful, most natural hair. So if it's like game day hair and how you're doing your hair before a game, like, people want to see this stuff. They just want to know, they want to know like how you're getting ready, what you're doing, how you stay in shape, what bathing suits you're wearing, where you're hanging out. Like, they just want to know everything about you outside of life. I mean,
yeah, I think the key too to that is they want to know you outside of your sport, right? So we do this, OneTeam does this podcast called Athlete And, where athletes talk about something that they are. So we'll have NFL players that say, my name is Patrick Mahomes and I'm an athlete and landscaper, because he's truly passionate about landscaping. So we did this series, and I just did it with a ton of professional female soccer players. And we had women come on and talk about baking and how they're obsessed with baking. We had a woman come on and talk about how her true passion is upscaling furniture. And it's just the coolest thing. So So it's really cool to be on ESPN and have your game on ESPN and show your highlights and show awesome game photos, but then also show yourself like upscaling furniture or whatever your passion is within yourself. Like show people that, because that's when you think of like when I think of any your favorite person to follow on social media. I don't know that I have a favorite person, but like when I think of Dwayne Wade, right? So I follow Dwayne Wade. I do not follow him because he was a fantastic NBA player. I follow him because I'm super interested in his marriage. I'm super interested in his kids. I'm very interested in where his older son plays basketball and his younger child, and he raises his nephew, like he has his whole life. So when you think of why you follow people on social media, you might initially follow like Jenny Finch because she was a professional softball player, but you follow her now because you want to watch her kids grow up. And by the way, when you're talking about product, like this goes back to Jenny Finch. She's another one. When she played at Arizona and then she played for the USA softball team, like the headbands that she wore then went lit. Like it was on fire. And you guys have that a little bit, but you have the benefit now of benefiting from that. Skylar Diggins too, when she played at Notre Dame, same thing with her headbands. Every little girl wanted a Skylar Diggins headband, and they would go out and buy it from Adidas. Skylar got none of that money, none of it, and they were buying it because she was wearing it for every game during March Madness. And so you guys are fortunate enough that whatever your passion is, whatever your trend is, whatever you find within yourself, that now you can actually show people. The other thing that I wanted to add, when Lesley said make your profile public, which you absolutely should do when you're ready, when you and your parents are ready, but you also have to remember no takebacks, right? So whatever you put out there, it's out there. So even now, I'm sure Lesley, you would do this too. Like even now, when I hire someone, for the last 20 years, I've hired various people. I look at their Instagram and I wonder, this person is claiming on their resume that they're super professional, super type A, super buttoned up. Why is every single photo on Instagram of you in a bikini? Just out of curiosity. So remember, there's no takebacks. So whatever is flooding your feed is who you are, and that's what you're putting out there. So if you want to be taken very seriously, we have a ton of, you wouldn't be unbelievable amount of professional female soccer players in the NWSL with engineering degrees. It blows my mind. And I often think of myself like women in science is such a under discussed thing. I'm trying to encourage them to put it more out there that, hey, you have this degree and it's this pretty cool thing. And I just met with a professional soccer player. Her name was Ebony. She also plays on the United Kingdom national team. She was like, "Oh, I'm in law school." You love this, Leslie. I'm in law school. She plays professional soccer and is also in law school because she was like, "Oh, I figured I should hire my education in something." So we're trying to get her like, that's insanely difficult and awesome. You should be telling people that. So definitely figure out what your athlete and is, and speak it loudly, speak it proudly, speak it often, and it changes, right? Like, so my athlete and at 20 is not the same as it is at 39, right? So, and that's okay. You're expected to evolve as you grow up. You're expected to evolve as you move from the high school game to the college game to maybe even the professional game and or the national team. You're expected to evolve. So if you love plants, we're not saying you have to love plants for the next 20 years, but we're saying like authentically keep on your trend. So it's okay to love plants, but then if you're like, oh, I love plants, but now I'm super passionate about natural hair products, and I'm very into researching them, and I'm very into, sharing why they're so important. Like, that's okay. You don't have to stick with one thing your whole life, but make sure that it's authentic to who you are. And remember, always remember, no take backs. There are bad choices. I always tell my children this. There are bad choices and there are life altering decisions. And one bad post can be a life altering decision. So just like, it's the same thing as like they used to say, if you're angry, write a letter and then stick it in a drawer, don't mail it. Nobody does that anymore, but what they do is they go on social media. So if you're angry, like maybe draft the post and don't hit send, and look at it again the next day. You can always send it, but you can never unsend it. So if you're that little voice in your head even gives you a 1 second pause, just stop and wait a day and reassess.
Such a good call out. And going back to what you had said, just about evolving over time and evolving your the way you present yourself. I loved the example you gave of Jenny Finch, who, people started following her for her incredible play, but now you stick around because you want to see her grow, you want to see her family. I think that's where this space and where we're headed with NIL agreements is so fascinating. If players are able to develop and cultivate those followings now, it has implications for what your career looks like after you can no longer play, and how you can grow and evolve in your career. So I think that is really fascinating. I know we're coming up a little bit closer on time. I did want to say, for anyone following along, feel free to drop questions in the chat. I do have one more question for you all, and then we can go to Q&A. So I would love to know, when you are approached by an athlete, or if you are seeking out an athlete, what are 1 or 2 items that you are making sure that they absolutely check this box? This is an athlete I want to work with as an agent or management.
For me, 1, I do look at social medias, from the TikTok to Instagram, and just a social following to begin with, because I can only do so much from an agent perspective if they don't already have the social media following, because I can't build the social media following. That's truly on the athlete to start themselves. So I look at their following to begin with. Then I go to word of mouth of just asking other athletes that know them, because I truly want to hear how they've built, a name for themselves within the community. So I want to hear, how they are known within, the athletic space, of if they're a good person, if they're a good human. So I go to coaches or other athletes just to know who I'm working with, because I just want to know what type of athlete I'm going to work with. And then what we also do is then we get on a Zoom call with all of our athletes. And if it is at the collegiate level, we get on a phone call with the athlete and their family, whether it's a parent or both parents. And we have a Zoom call with them to just kind of talk about what we do from an agency perspective. And then we talk to the athlete and their parents about what they're looking for in an agent, to see if we're a good fit for each other. And then we kind of go from there on whether we're going to work together and move forward in that capacity.
Very cool.
I can echo you a little bit, Lesley. So 100% is like, now this is real life scenario. Sometimes brands will come to us and they might say like, hey, we want a W player, or we want a soccer player. We want someone in the state of California. Sometimes they really don't know and they lean on us as experts. And so when we get that flexibility, we're all super jazzed, because we want to work with athletes that we love. And why we love athletes is what Lesley said. Number 1, they're exceptional human beings. They're insanely kind. They're insanely polite. And they're easy to work with. And what I mean by easy to work with is they show up on time. They don't complain. Their agent is lovely to work with. They're genuinely excited to do whatever you're asking them to do. And I would say for you all out there, I just did this campaign with 14 athletes in this one campaign, and the brand was super hell-bent on this one athlete. And so we said, fine, lock down the athlete. The athlete was incredibly dull, incredibly dull. And sometimes that passion and that energy and that green aura, if you will, is what separates you from someone else. So I would say, in everything that you do, if you are not genuinely excited to do it, don't do it, because it shows out in your face, it shows up in the content, it shows up to the brand. So pick things that generally excite you, and then when you are there, be excited, be energetic, be a real person, don't come off as a robot. So that's what separates us. Like, if I can pick, I will read a script and say, this athlete would be perfect for this, because it needs passion, it needs life, it needs zest. When I watch it, I'm genuinely engaged with this person because they seem so into what they're talking about that I'm now really excited about it. So I would say energy, passion, and excitement are so important. And if you're doing something and you don't feel that way, don't do it.
I have an athlete, really quick story, but I have an athlete who's sponsored by a major sports brand, and we got to go up to corporate offices and meet everybody, including the president of the company. And when we left, she said, "Hey, Les, I want to write thank you cards for everybody that took time out of their day to meet with me that day." And I said, "Let's do it. Let's go." So she wrote a personalized thank you card to everybody, and we mailed them back up there. The president of the company sent her an email and said that of all the years he's worked there, nobody has ever written him a handwritten thank you card.
See, that athlete gets an A+. That's what you want. That's what you want. I did a shoot with an NBA player. He plays for Chicago. And at the end of the shoot, I was like, you tell your mother that she did an exceptional job raising you. This player was on time. Every response to me was either yes, ma'am, no problem, or what's next. He never once asked how much time we had left. He never once asked me, do I really need to do that? He showed up. He had a great attitude. He never complained. He was on time, and he just shook all the, like you said, Lesley, shook all the partners' hands, was a great sport. And like, guess what? His deal was renewed because he was fantastic. So it not only is great to be a great human being, because I genuinely believe in putting that out in the world, but it also greatly benefits you.
I love that. We have a lot of great human beings in our community here. So love to hear that. Let's go ahead and jump really quickly to Q&A. Going to see. All right. How do you know when it's time that you need an agent? Lesley, I'll tee that up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, like, I have a lot of athletes say, like, my inbox and my DMs are getting overwhelming with just a bunch of people kind of asking me to work with them. I would say that's probably a good time. Now, if it's just kind of, here's my thing. A lot of companies are going to start and say, we want to send you free product. That doesn't mean it has to just be free product. You can always go back to them and say, well, you know, is there a cash component to it? But I would say if your social media numbers are up there and people are constantly sliding into your DMs and asking to partner with you, that's probably a good time to reach out to an agent and say, I'm constantly being, you know, reached out to in regards to working with these different brands, and I don't know what to do. Like, could I speak with somebody about kind of helping me? Because that's when an agent could jump in and take those contacts and say, we don't want free product. Can we talk cash? Can we talk, more incentives in regards to a partnership here?
Yeah, I'd also add, like, you, number one, need to be able to pay an agent, number one, for sure. So, like, you shouldn't say, I think I need an agent. Remember, everybody that, this is, thankfully, female athletes, I will say, tend to be a little bit smarter than male athletes. And you always have to remember, if you have a publicist and a manager and an assistant and an agent and a lawyer, you have to pay all those people, right? So be super smart with your money. I would also say there is a difference, and Lesley would agree with me, between an agent and a publicist and a manager. So just make sure that you're signing up for what you want. Like, if you're getting a lot of contracts, you want an agent that is like Lesley, that has a law degree, that is very familiar with contracts. If you're doing very small deals, which I hope most of you are at the high school level, like, you might not be ready for an agent, right? But if you might just need someone like that works for your family, that manages the workflow, like, that's also a different it's a different pay scale. And also, I will say that agents work in many different ways. You can also have an assistant or a manager or an agent, depending on how they're structured, but you could have someone on retainer, which is at one price point, or you could pay someone per the amount of deals that they bring you. So it's like, if they bring you a $5,000 deal, maybe they get 20% of that $5,000, but they're not being paid any other time. They're only being paid if they bring you something. So it's various different levels, but no matter what, if you're working with someone, you probably have to pay them.
Very good call out. especially as people are planning for these stages in their career. Let's do one more question. If an athlete wants to work with a brand but doesn't have a rep, what steps do you think they should take to engage that brand?
I say there's a couple steps. I mean, one, I think LinkedIn is a huge asset to myself, to athletes. So if you're not on LinkedIn, I would get on LinkedIn. And then look up that brand. And then when you get to the brand, there's a section of LinkedIn and it's called People. Go to the People section and then look under the people that work for that brand and try to find the marketing person for that company and see if there's a contact person for that brand and see if there's a email and you can reach out to them that way. You can try to reach out through Instagram. They may give you a contact. They may give you a, brand opportunity link you can register with. But LinkedIn really is your friend to start now through growing your brand as a businesswoman and getting on it and create an own link for yourself of just being a businesswoman as a athlete and get on there and start connecting with people who you think could benefit you through your career and your life. And you can start following them and connecting with them and just reach out to people that way.
Huge advocate also of LinkedIn. In my graduate class, which for some of you on the call, you might not go professional. You might just go to college and then you have to pick something else for your career. And one of the 6 times in every single one of my classes, they have an actual assignment where they have to go on LinkedIn and either find a company that is interesting to them that they might want to work for someday, or search a job title that's very interesting to them. And they are to message the person or the company and say, I'm a student. I would love an informational interview with you to learn more about your job and your career. I highly recommend this because no one will turn down a high school student, right? So, and no one turns down a college student either. At least I'm sure Lesley doesn't. I don't. I know all the executives that I work with, we don't either, because they're like, oh, we're a student. We need to help our students, which is great. We should help our students. But once you're out of that window, like if you're just a 20-something trying to find a job, it's way harder to get those informational interviews. So 100%, like, learn about the business. If you love that brand, learn about the brand from a job perspective as well. So message them and say, hey, I'm a high school volleyball player. I love your brand. I saw that you work as director of partnerships for Lululemon. I would love to have an informational interview with you to learn more about your career as I'm a rising senior and I'm looking into the sports industry. Like, informational interview, that's the phrase you want to use because that's very educational driven.
I love it.
And if you're trying to reach out to a sports brand, I'm going to guarantee you at least 50%, if not more, were a college athlete at some point in their life, that you're going to have that connection if you looked at them on LinkedIn to connect with them in that capacity of a conversation to be an icebreaker.
Building relationships, building that trust. I love it. Well, ladies, this has been incredibly empowering to learn more about this ever-changing landscape. Lisa, Lesley, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If anything, thank you both so much. Our mission at P1440 is to empower our members by giving them the tools they need to flourish and grow in their sports careers and beyond. We hope tonight we've done just that for you all. Thank you to our audience for joining tonight, and be sure to keep an eye out for details on our next Sideline chats. Thank you all, and we will see you later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.